To the select board meeting for Wednesday, February 2nd. Call to order at 6:30 p.m. This is being live streamed and recorded. The first topic is discussion regarding the town response to COVID-19. Any updates?
Just at your last meeting, you asked when the Board of Health was meeting next to discuss the face covering requirement. So they will be meeting next Wednesday, the 9th. So that has been scheduled, and we're starting to finally receive our COVID-19 test kits for town departments in the school. So they're coming in small batches. So I will keep departments notified when we have those.
Okay. And if I followed the recent counts, they look kind of, I guess I'll say stable.
Slight decrease, but stable.
The current face covering order is through what, around the
Should be the 13th of February.
13th. Yeah, okay. Any questions?
No questions.
None.
Okay. Next topic, discussion regarding traffic control, Erving Center, impacted by the Church Street Bridge. Don't have anything new. Does anyone else?
No new updates today.
Nothing new.
Okay. Review Arch Street for sewer main change order requests. Any update there?
I am in the process of getting a response back from the vendor, and hopefully should be able to schedule that topic for your vote or your consideration for your meeting on Monday.
Okay. So we expect to have some
Correct.
response that we may be able to take action on by then.
Correct.
Okay. Meeting minutes, January 24th, 2022. I did not have a chance to read them. I don't know if either of you did.
I did, but it's fine. We can
We'll carry them
We can hold them till Monday.
till Monday.
That's fine.
Okay.
Discussion regarding the annual report dedication. So it's pretty simple. My ask is if one of you would be willing to take that task on. I have done it a few times in my time as chair, and I don't mind being chair, but I would appreciate if either one of you would be willing to take that task on. Or we can do it as a group, which
So, I don't,
so the annual town report dedication,
Yep.
I believe it was this board 3-4 years ago made the decision to have it be just the decision of the chair. And we have a recommendation form that we circulate within the town departments to recommend ideas, concepts, or people for that dedication. And then left it as a kind of a surprise by not holding a discussion in public session about it, and
Got
let the chair make the determination and the decision. I'm flattered with that responsibility, but have done it multiple times and would like if one of you would
You'd
be
like
willing to take
like
that
to
on.
defer.
I would like to defer.
Yeah,
Or we can bring it back to the table and discuss it here too. So I'm open to that, whatever you both would prefer.
No, I don't have a problem either
Yeah.
way, Bill. If it's something you're chomping at the bit to do, go for it. Otherwise, I'll do it. I don't have a problem taking it on. It's just working with the
you're more
staff,
than welcome
department heads.
you're more than welcome
Okay.
to take it.
Yeah, I'll take it on. I'll
I have
reach
no
out to the
concerns.
department heads and.
Brian will connect you with Betsy,
Yeah.
who has all the data collated for you.
Yeah, there was an email already once, with
Yep.
with some thoughts. So sounds good. I'll
Okay,
take care of it.
thank you.
Yep.
All I will say is please do not further the statute conversation, and my name should not be part of that discussion. That's all I'm gonna say,
Fair enough.
please.
I'll just make it happen.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yep.
And then on to the primary topic of the evening, which is discussion and review of a draft agreement in principle regarding recreation for First Light Power Resources. And the lengthy document that was provided earlier today from First Light.
Can I give you the high level?
Sure, if you want to start us off, that'd be great.
So, as you all are aware, the First Light Power Resources Company has been working to renew their license with the Federal Energy and Resource Commission for a few years now. And as part of that process, they have to put together a comprehensive settlement for the permit. And so they've been working with stakeholders throughout the region about a whole host of issues. The agreement in principle, the document that's in front of you today, is it's a conceptual agreement about where they are on negotiations for recreation-related items. So they've been working with a group of stakeholders for quite some time to come to an understanding between those stakeholders about recreational improvements that they would like to see at the various locations. They are at the point where they're ready to file this part of this with FERC, and they would like to have the stakeholders, including the 4 towns that the properties reside in, take a position on this and see if hopefully the company would like you to sign on. So this has come to you all tonight. I know it was in Northfield, I believe, yesterday. I think the town of Montague, end of last week. So all 4 towns are having public meetings on this, and the select boards are being asked to review this and to decide whether or not they feel like they can vote to move forward on this piece. This is not the final agreement. There are definitely other issues that have not been completed in terms of negotiations, and there's some references to additional items that still need to be addressed outside of this agreement. So again, this just focuses on recreational opportunities.
So I read the document, and with the exception of the mountain biking expansion in Erving, I didn't see any other issues that that concern the town of Erving. So
There's one other.
There's- I think it's the next section down. The climbing ledges are called out
Oh,
in there
yes,
as well,
yes,
right?
and the ledges.
For Rose Ledge
Yep,
and
yep,
Farley
and the
ledges.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's correct.
And those are proposed.
Yep.
Right.
Correct.
And I assume that all the other towns that are involved in the recreation aspect of this, have we gotten any feedback from those towns as to how they feel about the package, or is this just our vote? And
It's an interesting question. And so I think every town is trying to figure out how to approach the agreement. I think every town can speak well to the pieces that impact their town directly, but may not be as well versed on the aspects that impact other towns. And some of these other stakeholders have interests or missions that transcend our geographic boundaries. And so maybe they're looking at the full Connecticut River in those interests. So I think every stakeholder's come to this agreement from their own perspective. And I guess that's the question that you all are going to be asked to wrestle with. If it addresses Erving specific items that you feel that you can support and they align with what the town is looking for, is that satisfactory enough to support this document? Or do you need additional information on some of these other aspects that other stakeholders have asked for and that
Right.
First Light has agreed to in order to feel comfortable taking a vote? I think from my understanding of the negotiations and what I've seen from the communications, that the stakeholders, this document has been released because the stakeholders have come to this understanding. So if there was a concern that a stakeholder has advocated for and it is appearing in this document, it's something that they were looking to have First Light agree to.
so, as a whole, I'm in favor of the document. I don't see any reason to object to it. And I'm in favor of any expansion of recreation, whatever it might be in the town of Erving. So I have no real concerns as far as we're concerned. I have no concerns as far as we're concerned.
I'm just backing up slightly to your opening, Brian, make sure I'm following what we would be voting in support of if we sign this, which is that we agree, and correct me if I'm wrong in stating this, that we agree that we support recommendation to FERC to relicense First Light, and are satisfied with their proposed or existing recreation and management as listed in this document for the licensing period.
So I've tried to get clarity on that from council, and I've received 2 different answers on that. So the first piece is, again, this is a document that they're calling an agreement in principle. This is not a final settlement document. And so there will be other pieces of the negotiations that are being finalized. They will likely come in some format like this, and then comprehensively they all come together to form the final settlement documents. At that point, when you have a comprehensive document, that would be likely the final agreement that meets the definition that you were describing. Could there be something in this document that you agree to support and sign off on this piece, but then there's another piece in the next agreement in principle on another topic that you don't necessarily agree with? Does signing this or approving this piece force your hand on the other one? No. But does it imply your support? Does it sort of move the discussion and the settlement in that direction? Yes. So there's a little question about how legally binding this stage of this document is. I know that this is an important document for the company to present to FERC to give them a status update as to where these negotiations are and what progress has been made on these issues. But I don't know that it's necessarily as ironclad as that final settlement document that the stakeholders will be asked to sign on to.
And maybe it's that language that's causing my pause or questioning that of the idea of a settlement agreement.
Right.
What we're not. I mean, in principle, I guess you can say we have some say in this, and therefore negotiation, but we haven't been having a legal discussion with them.
Right.
That that we're settling on per se.
Right.
But going through the whereas and all that, if I follow those, it's specific to recreational improvements of the project. So this is an agreement that we are satisfied with any recreational proposed or existing changes or modifications or maintenance.
Correct.
For that. Okay.
Correct. And to what you, Selectman Benbury and you both were describing, there's 3 efforts in Erving that are listed. There's definitely an expansive list here for the total of the project components, but for Erving, we're specifically talking about efforts to conserve Farley ledges, which is something that the Western Mass Climbers Association has been advocating for. There is work to improve the Rose Ledges climbing area, which is also in Erving. And then there's also efforts to expand some trail access, some mountain biking and other improvements on trails that exist in the town of Erving. I believe they're connected to the access point that would begin at the Northfield Mountain Recreation Center, but then they expand into the town.
Scott, did you want to add
Yeah,
anything
so-
before we take any comment or question? We haven't had an
Yeah, just
opportunity.
one other question I had was if you're looking at the table, the very last, I think it's page 8 of their document. First Light will conserve. It's the 1.3 mile portion. It doesn't say if it's existing or proposed, or if it's on license or off license. That part of the table was left blank.
What page?
The very last bullet, page 8, I
8,
believe.
yeah.
It's the last one before the maps. So I don't know if that's on license, off license, proposed or existing.
That is, and I will ask them to clarify that. So let me first make that note, and then I'll tell you what I believe that is. So I believe this is tied to the request that came through, and I believe you all submitted a letter of support for the Appalachian Trail Association and Mass DCR to preserve that trail and ask First Light to do the same. I believe this is their response to that they are going to work to try to preserve. There's a piece of this that gets a little too close to the project boundaries, and so they're working with the concerns that come from Homeland Security and making sure that everything is appropriately done. But if they can carve out enough protection to conserve that path, they are willing to work with them. My understanding was it was going to be an off-license piece, but I will get that confirmed so it's in the document.
Thank you.
You didn't notice where that is. Did you notice where that is in the diagram? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes awfully close to the holding.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was just
really
whether or
close,
not,
yep.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be on license or,
Right,
or
right.
off.
Okay. Jackie, did you have a question?
Well, I had a couple of comments. You want me to-
Yeah, you can come on up, please.
Brian had asked me to review the document to make sure that it looked good from, the other point of view for Northfield Mountain. One of the things that I did notice was they talk about Rose Ledges and the Farley Ledges, and they have them marked on the map as close together, but they are not.
No.
So that's definitely a change that we should be asked to have made to clearly identify that Farley Ledges are where they have the marking. Rose Ledges are a considerable amount away, actually, next to Poplar Mountain Road. There's no parking for Rose Ledges currently other than the private parking that exists on Poplar Mountain Road owned by Tim Tierney. So I almost feel like we should add something in there that it's great that they want to expand it. It's a premier climbing area, but we should think about where is everybody going to park? Because it's not ideal to have it on private property, nor the whole issue with the back and flow traffic on Poplar Mountain Road. So I noticed that that was kind of a little misleading, and that I wanted some clarity in that so that it would protect the town's interest. I mean, I think that was really the other one. The mountain biking was fine. I did read the whole document through, and I didn't see any issue regarding the proposed, the main one was the release of the water. How would that impact? And basically what I read from the agreement was they would do their darndest to notify the public as long as they had prior notification when the releases were going to happen, then they would put it on like their website. So the only one I could really, that stood out was the Rose Ledges and the inaccuracy of the map. And what are they going to do about parking? So right now, when you go to the Rose Ledge, when you go to climbing on Rose Ledges, they tell you to park in the private parking lot, but then they caution you not, just to be aware that it is private property. And then and that parking lot is considerably a distance from the actual Rose Ledges. So if they could ask for a little more clarity how they're going to develop that. They did do that in some of the other aspects of the document where they said they were going to develop things like down in Montague, I think it was Poplar Street or something, and they talked about the kayaking, the access. They were a little more detailed about that, and I was hoping that we could insert some more detail on that, on both the Farley Ledges and with Rose Ledges. If they're going to promote it, it's going to bring more traffic, which is all good, but where are they going to park?
One other question I'd asked Jackie to look at is if there was any concerns from the assessor's office about the proposal to permanently conserve those recreational opportunities. And I don't believe there was a concern.
And there's not, so when the mountain project is assessed, the land in particular is assessed as industrial, recreation, or riverbank. And the part that's already, where they're talking about conserving is already considered recreational. It's part of their license. It's got a very low value. It's not going to reduce it at all. It's not really part of the industrial part of what, when they draw the water up and release it.
Thank you. Any questions?
So this conversation leads me to come to the conclusion that First Light is talking to the Climbing Association, I assume, but there doesn't appear to have been any dialogue with us as a town.
So
in
we
this
are
document.
able to sit at the meetings and be part of the conversation. And so I know that going back to the New England Trail, there was a request to see if the select board would support a letter to them asking them for that, and you had signed on to that. That has now made it into this document. The Western Mass Climbing Association has been advocating for several years to have some formalities around their use of the Farley ledges, and they've been advocating for that. And Mariah and I have met with them a few times with First Light. Sometimes they meet with First Light and report back to us later. They've been advocating for some improvements for quite some time. And so those items have made it into this document. The Rose Ledges was a new request that I had not been aware of. I know that it's a popular climbing location, as Jackie noted, and parking is often an issue in that neighborhood. And we've had some of that conversation here as we've been discussing the reconstruction of Poplar Mountain Road and what may need to be done for the ledges. But it was news to me to see it in this document draft when it came out. So I believe that was a tangent conversation to the Western Mass Climbers Association and their advocacy around Farley ledges, that was also included. But that doesn't mean that that's not something that we can go back to them and say the town generally may support these initiatives, but needs to have a little clarity as to what that would look like in terms of Poplar Mountain Road and the Rose Ledge area.
Thank you.
I agree with you. I think there's clearly been some advocacy for things that exist in Erving, or that groups who are part of a list of groups, in discussion or party to this. But yeah, I don't think we directly have sat in on or been asked. On the other hand, I would say this is our opportunity. We're being asked if we would sign on, and so I think you bring up a really good point, Jackie, about. It's great that you designate that, but can we get you to expand on what you will do to improve access and parking, and will you commit to something? What would you offer to do as expanding on that for that area? Because especially if you are designating it, that's going to increase what is already a constrained situation with the way it is today. So, and I'm hearing we're in favor of it, but we need more substance on how that's going to be more accessible and handle the traffic and visiting of it to sustain that, right? I mean, that's what I'm
Agreed.
hearing, and I agree. I've seen the area, and we have our own Poplar Mountain Road situation to deal with road-wise, and that's something that we're working on. But the recreational side of that and parking and all that is a known challenge. And I do think they should update the map to call up. I believe it's significantly to the left of where that marker is for Rose Ledge.
Separated by miles, yeah.
Yeah, noticeably different on the scale that we see. So that should also be updated, I agree. I think somewhere along the way, I think Jackie brought up about the flow notification section. And in reading that, it just gave me pause and thinking about how we interact with them in public safety situations and such. But I believe, especially based on what you were saying, that's likely covered in it, because this is really recreational focus. So I'm sure that's about public understanding if we're using the river, if there's significant flow changes happening that may affect them. So those type of things should be in a different document, I'm sure. But when we get to that stage, and expecting there'll be other versions, I think we want to make sure public safety's reviewed that, and if they have concerns from their experiences or situations they've encountered, we should make sure we're addressing that too. As a side note.
Right.
So Brian, is there a need to sign this document as it stands now, or?
So when they were asking for this approval from all the stakeholders, they originally were working under a deadline. They had hoped that they could achieve a response from all the stakeholders by the end of January. And we made that clear that was not a realistic goal. So instead, I believe Monday they filed just an update document with these general principles about where everybody was, and to sort of outline where we think the select boards would be in bringing these to public meetings and have conversations with citizens and deliberate. And so I already had told them that you wouldn't be able to look at this until February 7th at the earliest. And last week you all decided that you'd be willing to schedule a meeting ahead of time. So they're aware that you're meeting tonight. They were invited to be here tonight. They know that you're going to likely discuss this again next Monday, and you may or may not take action next Monday, and you very well could hold it for more meetings. So they are aware of that.
Did they give a proposed or anticipated time when they wanted to turn this into the FERC?
My understanding is they are under some more regular deadlines over the next few months. So my understanding is they're trying to get this part solidified in the month of February.
Okay. And do you have an idea of how many different AIPs will be coming? Because I know there's several different parts. This is a recreation.
Correct.
There's several different categories. Do you have any idea how many are coming?
No, I will find out.
Okay. Just curious. What will
There's a few more, but I don't know the exact number, but I will
Okay.
ask.
Further to that, if they can illustrate the timelines that are attached to those, because what they really wanted was this before February 1st.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's really what they wanted, but
Right.
obviously that wasn't feasible. So,
Right.
Right.
you know, how many more, and are we going to get those the day before they're due, hoping to have us act quickly? If we knew ahead of time, we can plan a little better. Other questions or concerns?
No, I think Erving has looking at, the town breakdowns of the impact, it has the least amount, even though it's a large contingency of what we care about. But it has, we have a small impact on the recreational piece of it. So Jackie's insight was good about the map, much appreciated. I don't have any concerns if we can give them the feedback of those changes and corrections.
I agree. I think especially if they could flesh out something a little more in there where they may be able to invest in improvements there or propose something, it doesn't have to be obviously of the scope to do something, but some of the proposed things, just a one-liner of what they propose they could do to improve there and
Okay.
the rest of
I
what
agree
we've
as
raised.
well.
Yeah.
Okay. And to the conversation the three of you were having, we weren't as involved in the recreational negotiations, but we've been very clear that the public safety aspect is our overall focus.
Yeah.
With the dam being in Erving and the reservoir in Erving, that anything related to that and its security and its safety is what we are of utmost concern about. So they have a good relationship with the chiefs and making sure that we are constantly updated when they're doing drills and when they're doing any work there. I don't expect that to change, but we will make sure that whatever they bring forward for any AIP regarding those aspects are reviewed by public safety and brought to the three of you.
If you could just get some clarity as well, when we talk about the climbing ledges, there's two different parts, and they have Rose Ledge as on license and Farley as off. And I'm just curious why they chose to do it that way.
I will get you clarity on that.
Maybe,
Do you?
Maybe
Yeah,
Jackie
please.
knows. If you have insight on that, Jackie.
That's a good question. It occurred to me too.
Yeah.
Why something would or wouldn't? What's the advantage or disadvantage?
And what's the advantage? What's the disadvantage? What does that mean when it comes to the licensing? And
Sure.
Well, they could give you more technical, but basically, they're required to have so much recreational opportunities as part of the FERC license. So the Rose Ledges are within that original boundary.
okay.
So that's why it's on license, because it was part of the original
Got it.
40, and so it's a continuation of that. The Farley Ledges, the ledges themselves are within their boundary, but they weren't a recreational opportunity that they were required to maintain and promote. The Western Mass Climbers Association wants to protect that, and that's why they've been working on it. And that's also why Rose Ledge came up as getting a little more publicity, because the Western Mass Climbers Association also has a link to the Rose Ledges on their website. So I think they're the ones that brought it into the conversation. And they are miles apart. But that's the reason for the difference.
So the
because
on license, they're required because it was part of the original.
It was part of the original boundary agreement
I
back
just wanted
in
to make sure
in the 1960s.
how they came to that,
Yep.
different.
I believe that the reference to that location is to improve the recreational facility. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're talking about the proposed?
Yeah, if you go under Town of Irving,
Yeah.
First Light will make Rose Ledge a designated project recreational facility. So to the idea of being on license. or-
It is on, so it's off of, it's actually off of near the 10th Mountain Trail and the Rose Ledge Trail that they already have in existence. They're just saying that they'll do more to promote it and that sort of thing.
Okay,
That's why it's on license.
thank you.
But I will ask them if they have additional context that they'd like to offer in response to that.
And just, at least from what I reviewed, and I think we all looked at that too, for the sake of the audience, there is quite a bit of the Northfield Mountain Trail system that is on Erving property. And there's no proposed changes, they're just not called out, but they're already on,
Correct.
they're probably all on license. So they're already there, they're already maintained. There's no proposed changes, so that's why,
Correct.
to your point, it's minimal what's listed. That doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of recreational space that's in that project today, so, on Irving land. Thank you, that makes a lot more sense about the license piece. So I think, it sounds like that's about the sum total of our specific concerns. Does the board want to offer just a verbal opinion? If we get some clarity and satisfaction in what we've asked questions on, that we would potentially be willing to sign, or are we not at that stage?
No, I'm not-
Just to give them a directional.
Yeah, I was going to say, the feedback to them is not just the questions, but I would say if we have satisfactory response, that, there's some additional redrafting of the language coming back to us that we can mull over on Monday, and it meets our need, I'd be in favor of signing it.
I as well.
Myself as well.
So that gives them a few days anyways.
And if they need longer, then we can always delay.
Correct.
It's their timeline.
I'm getting the sense that as each of these meetings happen with each of the towns, they're going back and making the slight adjustments and getting it back out to the groups, which is why I received an updated document this morning.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think that was Town of Montague feedback. I don't know what Northfield's feedback was, but I'm sure that's getting worked into it as well.
So there potentially be a few iterative changes outside of just what we've asked potentially for Monday.
Okay.
Got
And
it.
if there's anything like that, I will ask for, again, what are because I didn't get a red line version, but what are the changes? They were minor from the last week.
Okay. Okay. Any other business?
None.
Done.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:03 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.